Good afternoon and welcome to our session today. My name is Quintress Safala and I am your presenter for today. I am joined by my wonderful colleague, our moderator, Upindile Wagamavundla. So if you do have any questions, any comments or queries, do let us know in the chat box and Pindile will be able to assist you. So today we're looking at one of my favorite topics, staying productive online. And our agenda today is we will be talking about items that you need in order to set up your remote office. We will look at how to build a productive working environment, as well as the top tips of how to actually do that. And then we will also get into how to manage and maintain our well-being while we are working remotely. So now we're going to get into familiarizing ourselves with the chat box, and we will ask you a question, or rather an activity for us in the chat box. And we have a question for you, and this question is, how has COVID-19 impacted your role? So how has COVID-19 impacted your role? So it could have impacted you in so many ways. It could be that with COVID-19, you had to move from working in the offices and we would have to go work at home. We were not able to go to the offices due to the hard lockdowns that were happening. We were not able to see our colleagues in the workspaces. So how has COVID-19 impacted your role at the workplace, or just generally how did it impact you? Yeah, do let us know in the chat box, and my moderator is ready to let me know what the responses are. So just to say the question again, how has COVID-19 impacted your role? So now we're going to get into this section of our session today, and we're going to look at how to set up your remote office. So what is remote working, right? So remote working is basically a working style that allows us as professionals to work outside the traditional office environment. So it's basically based on the concept of work does not need to be done at a specific place to be executed successfully. So while we are having the ability to work from outside our corporate offices, working remotely has now only becoming a mainstream because of the impact of COVID-19 and how it has affected us. And you will have to think about it this way. Instead of us commuting to the offices each day to work from this designated desk, you could execute your work to achieve any of your work goals anywhere and however you want in any working space, right? So basically, remote working allows us the flexibility to design our day so that it doesn't affect both our professional as well as our personal life. And so that both these two, which is professional and personal life, experience the fullest potential and coexist peacefully without us merging the two to affect our daily lives, right? So there is this cultural shift in which society deems to be an appropriate workplace, and remote working has capitalized off the newfound freedom that we have in order to work anywhere we want. It could be a coffee shop, it could be a rental unit, or anywhere else, as long as we are able to complete those tasks that we are required for work. So where can we work remotely, right? Working remotely does not mean we could actually work from home only. Like I said, you are able to work from a lot of places, and you look at working at your home, right? And when we work from the offices or working from home, that doesn't mean that we need to fill a corner of our living room with a clunky desk and a monitor in order for us to work. It can fit it could fit an office wherever it fits your life, right? Working at home cuts off the commuting time that we take in order to go to work, especially with the traffic that we have. And it gives us flexibility in our home lives in order to pursue other things at home while we are also working, right? So working in public spaces such as your coffee shops, your cafes, a bar or a restaurant can also often boost a productivity, right? Because life can get pretty boring when we're sitting at home and working our way on our own. So we are a social beings, right? Interactions with others is very important for our mental health. So if you don't just want to work from home, or maybe you live alone, so you could go out and interact with people while you work, right? So working in cafes gives us that chance to actually at least have a smile from someone and maybe have a little chat with someone in that space while you are working. That way we are not lonely, right? So we also have co-working spaces, which are great options for us or for freelancers or remote workers. But the fee for this is your dedicated desk can run like hundreds per month. So we need to, when you do look at your co-working space, you need to be aware of the fees that come around with this or the cost that aligns to this part of working space. Um, and another thing is, if you don't like, sometimes you don't need to make calls, but if you do, libraries are a great place. Not really. If you don't need to make calls, libraries are actually a great place to actually get the work done. So libraries are free. We know that it has free Wi-Fi as well. And there's lots of tables where you could just pick your spot, sit there and work. But the truth is, wherever we choose to work, one thing remains key is we need to ensure that we are really equipped, or rather we have the tools for us to work effectively in order to get our work done. And we will get into this with another question. What do you need in order to work remotely? So, what are the things that you need in order to work remotely? This could lead from you needing a laptop, for example, Wi Fi, like we've mentioned. But what are the other small things that you need in order to work remotely? Do let us know in the chat box. We would love to hear from you. What are those things that you need in order for you to work remotely? So there are a few elements that we need in order to work remotely. And as mentioned previously, you will need a space to work, right? And if you are working from home, you could put thought into creating a work environment that is suitable for the type of work you do, but be respectful of the space, especially if it's a shared space, right? Just because you're not working from the office doesn't mean that you can't have an office, right? So rather than working from your room or on the couch, which are those spaces that are mostly associated with leisure, maybe have a specific room or a place where in your place or in your home where you could put that space specifically for working, right? And the devices that you may need, you there's technology we would potentially need in order to work from home. And for example, you would need a laptop if you are working on typing your documents, your spreadsheets. You would need a phone if you are taking calls or making calls, right? And another thing is we need internet connectivity, because work today is becoming more collaborative. So we are all working in one space. So we may rely on the internet to send and receive files, to work on live files, to communicate with our teams. And for this reason, we do need an internet connectivity, because it's very crucial as part of a remote working toolkit. So now let's look at a bit more details, right? So now, how do you create your own workspace? So the living room or in the bed might not be necessarily the best place to work if you want to be productive. That is why when you are creating your workspace at home, it is very important that it will help us to concentrate. So we need to pick a place that we feel most productive in. Although most people talk about working from the couch comfortably, we will realize that it isn't as effective as we may think, right? So we need to consider setting aside a table and a chair in a room with minimal distractions. So just a simple desk and a comfortable chair with in one corner of the room, or a balcony would work just fine. So the workplace doesn't have to be the most beautiful workplace out of this world, right? And if possible, we need to create an economical comfortable space, and by this we mean like a space that um allows you to have comfortable sitting position, and where we choose the type of chair that supports our back, egg support, right? And we need to make sure that we have a comfortable head position when we are deciding on the position or place where we put our laptop or monitors, right? So it's very important that we sit in the most comfortable space when we are working. So now we're going to look at the types of equipment that you need. So now here, when it comes to equipment, it will depend on the type of work that you do, but just a few that we have thought of is a phone. So we're going to need a phone in order to do the basics, which is to answer your calls and to communicate with your teammates on chat, right? You're going to need a computer. This is when we are working on multiple documents, when we have video calls or conferences, and most laptops comes with a webcam, but they tend to angle up with the user's nostril. So meaning that we might need an external camera if that's your best bet. But I mean, it's what you got, right? We need to use what you have got, which is just a simple laptop. And we also need a notebook. So we need to keep a notebook handy in order to jot down our notes, things to do, ideas, or brainstorm. So that's other things that we could potentially do, or rather, there's other physical equipments that we need in order to work remotely. And then we're going to talk about your stable power, right? So we know with power and load shedding, it's becoming something that is regular, or something that we need to constantly be aware of and understand that it is happening, right? So finding a stable power supply for working may be one of the major challenges that we may face, right? And in order for us to be productive, we need to have stable power in order to charge our devices, in order to charge those laptops, those mobile phones, and whatever equipment that you may need. So one way you could overcome this challenge is to get a generating set, right? You can get a solar powered systems, you can get inverters, so that you are able to actually make working from home doable regardless of all the power problems that may come. So working remotely means the likelihood of incurring additional costs in terms of your powering generators, right? So working on the go remotely in other locations with Wi-Fi, such as your cafes, your libraries, are also great options, where you just take your laptop to the workplace, you switch off your power, and you work, right? So you don't have to stress about such thing as your generators and so forth. And another thing is we need to find good internet connection, because it's very important, right? And we also have to look at our internet speed. And also this also is going to look at what work do you do, right? So while the cost of data can be cheap, in the recent times when they look at your home bundles and so forth, the speed of connectivity or connection hasn't improved that much. So slow connection means that you can't really do much online. So your web pages might take forever to load, and this could cause quite a lot of frustration and could literally lead to you being affected in terms of productivity. So, in order for us to be productive, we need to get a decent internet connection. And this might mean that we are moving from laptop tethering to investing in a broadband or fiber to the home internet service. And we don't want to be that person who didn't finish an important task because of slow internet, right? So it's important that we are choosing the right internet service provider, right? And depending on where we live, there are multiple service providers that we can choose from. If your data connection is unreliable, working, or rather, like when it's unreliable, working from home will be an advantage if you can work and change locations in search of better or improved network connections. We also need to look at finding the right router, right? So choosing the right kind of router is as important as keeping the right place. So this is when we look at your signal strength. We need to make sure that the Wi-Fi router is not kept in an enclosed or it's blocked with too many things around, right? We also need to look at your plug-in. So running in, or rather running a network cable from the router to the home office location is very ideal. And you could also use Google, for example, to test your speed in order to check different internet speed across internet service providers. And this will help us ensure that the internet speed is fast and will not affect our workflow. Now we're going to look at the challenges that we will need to overcome when we are working from home. But before we get into that, to that part, I have a question for you, and I want to know from you, what are the challenges that comes with working from home? What are the challenges of working from home? Do engage with us. Do let us know in the chat box, by commenting your answer in the chat box. What are the challenges of working from home, or rather working remotely? Let us know in the chat box and I'll come back to this question. So there is quite a lot that could happen when we are working from home. There's quite a lot of challenges that we may run into. And one of them is loneliness, right? Because loneliness draws it's a major drawback when it comes to working from home, especially for those extroverts. I'm one of those, right? And if you are used to your office chats, you might find that working from home can become quite lonely. However, if you think of working alone does affect your productivity, maybe what one can consider is they might consider going to a restaurant or an eatery to get their work done. That way, there is people that you can chat with. You could start conversations with other people there at the restaurant. Another challenge that we might face is your self discipline. So you need to be dedicated, right? You need to be disciplined and have self control in order to avoid losing momentum when you're working from home. So we need to try to not convince ourselves that a single YouTube video during working hours will do no harm. Because when you think about it, before you know it, you might have spent hours watching that YouTube videos and have forgotten that you have work to do, right? So another thing is when you work from home, there are no employee benefits. So you won't have those employee benefit, health insurance, or retirement funds. Although working from home opportunities in some countries include your medical cover, in some we can't say what are those benefits, right? And another challenge that a lot of people have mentioned quite a lot is the difficulty to actually switch off from home, like from work, right? So when you are working in your office, you are most likely to consciously know the closing time. And that's not always the case when we work remotely, right? When we work remotely, they the lines between working and home life are kind of blurred. So you might not find it easy to actually disengage yourself from work, because now these two, the line is so blurred that we can't really see it. And then there's FOMO, the fear of missing out, right? So working remotely could make you feel left out occasionally when you miss out on important announcements, meetings, or events in your offices. You will most likely be the last person to hear in your office about an upcoming event or an important announcement. However, there are platforms or software such as Slack where you can keep update with your offices while you work remotely. That way you don't get lost in all the announcements, right? Although these challenges may seem to be large initially, there are some ways to actually overcome them and master these challenges. And also, there are benefits to actually working from home that actually outweighs the disadvantages of working from home. But let's ask you another question. Do engage with us in the chat box. What are the benefits of working from home? We know there are benefits. I know, of course, I love the fact that I don't have to commute to go to the office. But of course, now we're back at the office. But you don't actually have to commute to actually get to the office, and you don't have to stay in traffic for hours in order to go to the office, right? So some of the benefits are your flexibility. Sometimes there are things that need to be done at home, so you are able to actually repair something while you are working. You are able to look at your everyday task and fit around your work life. So you can also be working while you're doing laundries or while you are receiving your online groceries. So it allows you flexibility to work. And my favorite is there is no commuting, right? So commuting takes a lot of time out of a day, that we will never get back, right? So we need to cut that out by working remotely, right? So when you work from home, you can be at your desk or the kitchen table and ready to work within minutes of waking up, right? And you even have a schedule for yourself to wake up and meditate, or to wake up and exercise before you get stuck into all your tasks, right? Instead of being stuck in traffic, right? Of course. And you also have more time with family, and there's less distractions. And by less distraction, we mean with some willpower and a steady routine, you will learn to avoid distractions such as your TV and your next load of laundry. In fact, you'll find yourself getting more work done when you work remotely, right? That's because now you can control your working situations much more. You don't have to worry about your coworkers stopping you just to ask you quick questions or socialize. When you're remote, you get to concentrate and focus on a task. And another lovely thing is you are able to let your colleagues know that they shouldn't disturb you, right? And there's also high morale, right? Remote employees are noticeably less stressed and have a higher morale because than in the offices. They are more happy, they're healthier, they produce better work, they feel more committed, and making that when they are happy, then we get good business, right? So, what are the benefits of remote working for the business? So, it reduces overhead counts, meaning that the cost of securing office space is quite high, right? And especially in major cities like Johannesburg, right? For many startups, paying high rent places is a heavy burden. So we get to reduce that cost. There's greater productivity from highly engaged workforce. You get to have an access to a wider pool of talent, meaning that as a business, you by allowing your employees to work remotely, employers can hire the best talents while not limiting themselves to like your geographical restrictions, right? And this will also promote diversity in these different countries, and where you look at different people from different parts of the world, right? And also another thing is you have improved employee retention. Now let's have a moment to ask some questions. If you do have a questions, don't forget to let us know in the chat box. We are ready to hear from you. We are ready to give you some top tips in terms of working remotely. Do let us know if you do have any questions. Right. So I see we don't have any questions. Let me move along. So now we're going to look at building a productive work environment. So why work? Why is your work environment important? The quality of your workspace is vital to your productivity. So we need to put some thought into our workspaces. And there are some tips to creating a workspace that promotes wellness and productivity. And this includes such things as your natural light, as well as your desk position, and considering the space of your for your various tasks and how to arrange your home office layout effectively. You can also create an area of your own to work, right? This can be a countertop in the kitchen where your laptop is, and you can sit there and work. You can find the right chair for you. So, finding a right chair in your home is very important, because you can find an ergonomic chair to sit on at your desk, which is good to always invest in a good chair so that it feels good, right? But also do that looking at your budget, what your budget can afford. You can also develop a beautiful or a nice filing system to keep you organized so that you don't get lost in the midst of it. So it's very important that we ensure that our personal environment is one that can help us work effectively in when we are working from home or the restaurant, or rather remotely. And research says that um, work environment the on like according to research study on effect of work environment on productivity, workplace distraction cuts employees productivity by 40% and increase errors by 27%. So it's very important that we create a space that increases productivity and put away those distractions. So how can we minimize distractions in our workplaces? Do let us know in the chat box. How can we minimize distractions when we are working remotely? So there are ways we can reduce distractions, right? It can be challenging sometimes to avoid distractions. But at some point, we need to try as much as possible in order to avoid them, right? And one is we could let others know that we have certain working hours. If you have a family, or you are at home, or you have neighbors and friends, let them know that you are working from 8 to 5, so that they know that at this time she's working. When you speak to them, you can speak to them during a time that suits you, maybe during your break time. That way, it allows them not to interrupt you, but only talk to you when it's urgent, right? And also do one thing at a time. After breaking down your huge processes into small, doable tasks, choose one task and dedicate yourself entirely to it so that you can complete it. After you can complete it, you move to the next task. You should also try to avoid TVs and those household distractions, and put away all the pets. While we love our furry friends, they can be quite distractive. So let's save our animal love after work, right? So we can also cuddle with them after work. And we also need to learn to take regular breaks, right? There's only so much that our brain can take. So it's very important that while we avoid distractions, we should take some break. You should get up your table, take a short walk, grab a coffee, and then come back and work. So, how can you improve productivity within a team? Right now, we are working from home. Now, we need to collaborate as a team. How do we improve that productivity within a team? Do let us know in the chat box, but tell you how we can do it, right? Remote team members need to be able to plan and collaborate on their commitments, on their deliverables, as well as tasks. So we need to be able to track the flow of work from the start to finish. So we need to establish the visions and deliverables by using our project management tools. We need to establish logistics for communications. We need to promote the fact that everybody is visible and there is transparency in all the work. We need to track quality and measure the statuses of our projects, as well as identify and address those bottlenecks. And also, study says that 70% of workplace mistakes are due to poor communication. So, communication plays a fundamental role in our daily lives. So, for some, good communication comes naturally, but for others, it's very hard to articulate their thoughts and feelings in conversation. This often leads to us having conflicts, or rather, just having fundamental errors. So, whether you are or we are an effective communicator or not, it's very important or essential that we understand the importance of good communication. And also, this will help us understand how we move forward in terms of the working world. So, there are several communication tools that could help us in terms of communication. We could look at your Slack. We could look at your Gmail, so emails for formal communication. We could use instant messaging platforms such as your chat, right? We could also collaborative tools for in our projects have chat functions that also could help us in terms of being effective in communication. So, what are the rules, or how can we set up rules in order to create a path for effective communication? Creating the right communication channels and ensuring everybody knows how to use them is very important. Virtual teams don't always choose the right or choose communication channels wisely, and therefore this can harm trust. It could increase tension in our working teams, and it could also create unnecessary work. So we need to think about the type of channels that we want in order for us to have the most effective communication. So we need to think about action items, feedback, or deadline reminders. And we also need to choose our audiences to make sure that the message is appropriate when we are setting those rules or sending out this message. So we need to communicate clearly. We need to respond promptly. We need to set the role models guidelines so that we know exactly what we need to do when we are communicating. So there are ways to actually increase good communication, and it's important to have communication in the most effective manner. We need to look at different communication tools that can work more effectively than other communication tools, depending on the purpose and task at hand. Like we said, emails are particularly useful for your business communications. Group mails allow you to send one single mail to a large number of recipients, unlike your instant messaging or instant chats, right? So messaging platforms can facilitate many daily functions a physical workplace that can do, right? So there are lots of chat platforms that can allow us to communicate more effectively with our teams. And some of those are your Meet, your Zoom, your Microsoft Teams, your Skype, as well as WhatsApp. So let's look at these conferencing tools in more details. So we have Google Meet. So you can keep your teams connected with an enterprise grade video conferencing built on Google Robust, right? So Meet is included in your G Suite and G Suite for education. We need to take advantage of this because it is a beautiful tool to use. Meet has encrypted messaging. It allows us to join meetings directly from the calendar or email invite. It allows important event details right there when we need them, right? With Meet, it's specially designed for Android as well as iOS apps. So we are able to see meetings any day as long as we have them on our calendar, right? And then now we're going to look at Zoom. Zoom is an application that can be downloaded as well, whether on your computer or your mobile device. And if you wanted, you could request a demo, or you can even download a free version where you play around with it. Zoom is free for the first 45 minutes. So if you want more than that, you will then have to go for the paid version. You can use Zoom to host or join a meeting for your online classes maybe, or for any meeting that you may have. And Zoom can be downloaded on either your PC, your Mac, your Android, or your iOS, and up to 100 people can actually join a meeting in a free mode of Zoom. Now we're going to look at Microsoft Teams. So with Microsoft Teams, you can create your teams and channels to organize your departments, right? Separate groups enables different teams and creates work to be more effective. You could utilize the chat and video call functions to boost communications. There's also GIFs or GIFs and emojis to use. You could share documents and collaborate with ease. You could use the add function in order to tag specific team members onto Microsoft Teams. And Microsoft Teams is included in our Microsoft 365 package. And then we have Skype. In today's world, It's difficult to get groups of friends and families in one place. And with Skype, video chat, group video calling can be up to 50 people for free, right? And all you need is just a mobile device, a tablet, or a computer. So your group video chat makes it easy for those 50 people to meet and collaborate at once. And we could share screens, we can present our PowerPoint slides, video recordings, and many more things that you could do with your entire team. And remote co-workers could work more efficiently. We could assign projects and discuss the due dates within that space, which allows us to be more productive. And with Skype video chats, you'll have access to a full video screen, which allows us to focus on your work while you're attending a meeting or just a usual chat with your friends. You can send a chat invite to anyone, so even people or clients that don't use Skype. And a lovely feature is you can blur your background and focus on the speaker, not the background, which is a new feature on Sky app. So you should try that one. And how can we run meetings more effectively? So, in order to run meetings more effectively, we need to set our agenda. So, this will frame the discussion and make sure that everybody's on the same page. We need to consider the tone of voice. So, if you are working remotely, people can't see your body language. So, we need to make sure that our tone is more expressive. We need to encourage participants to use their cameras. So it's important in order for us to connect together to make things more personal, as well as to boost those nonverbal communications. And we also need to be on time. So we don't want to leave people on call waiting. We need to be punctual as we would be in a formal physical meeting. So what are those video conferencing etiquette, right? We need to dress properly. We know that, right? We need to prepare ourselves. We need to dress appropriately. We don't need to turn up with some sweatpants and a tank top. So we need to make sure that we are dressed appropriately and get our mindset to work, right? That we know that this is a work thing. So we need to work to dress right. We need to consider our lighting, right? We need to look at where the light source is coming from, adjust our cameras in order to get those different contrast of our faces. If we don't have the best lighting, we could use a desk lamp to highlight lighting. And if we wear glasses, we could do some tests in order to make sure that it doesn't reflect on our lenses. We should also consider our background while we are doing video conferencing. In order to be clear and visible, it's always great to have a neutral background. Like currently, I don't have like the most neutral background, so I have a map of South Africa. So if I were to maybe blur it, I would then blur it. But for me, this looks fine because it's a map. So you need to consider your background, right? And you need to consider your audio. You need to make sure that people could hear you, and mute your mic if you're not talking in order for when you are in the meeting, in order for there not to be quite a lot of background noises. So now let's look at how can we boost collaboration. So, in order to boost collaboration, we need to equip our teams with the right tools. We need to make sure that project management tools are easy. We need to make sure that we make document sharing quite easy or a breeze. We need to encourage collaborations between departments so that all the work links up. We need to prioritize that we have a company culture, and we need to not lose that because now we're working remotely. So, what are the final top tips in order to be productive, right? Our top tips are to over communicate, right? Always over communicate. Communicate with your team regularly. Keep them in the loop. Unlike your office environment, when we are working remotely, our team members can't see what task that we are doing, right? We need to also be disciplined. We don't want to fall into temptations where we think that when we are working from remote working is a vacation or paid leave, since there's nobody supervising us or on my shoulder to check up on me. So we don't need to turn off our videos or rather our phones, ignore communications from our boss and colleagues. So we need to discipline ourselves and make sure that we work from home and we earn our pay, right? We need to have our tools ready. It's important that we have all the tools, our power, our internet, in order to boost our productivity. We need to make sure that there is alternative sources of power in course in we need to have alternative sources of power in case we have power cuts. We need to have unlimited fast internet service. We need to ensure that there is no disruptions or we are not distracted. And if we don't have enough internet, we need to find internet boosters, right? And we can also find those internet boosters to make sure that we we use it to make the most of our internet. We make sure that we boost our energy as well, to get sure we are in the working mood, a playlist, maybe an energy drink to get us starting, a snack maybe. So this boost is to actually ignite the stamina that we are working. This is not a depressing space. We're here to work, we're here to be productive and communicate effectively. And depending on our employment situation, we may have flexible working environment, so we could use the work time as the most active, whether we are at you are one that likes working at night or you're the one that likes working early bird. Working from home can allow us to work at the best time, but at the end of the day we need to deliver what is expected of us and also adhere to all the due dates that we have for our task. Now we're gonna pause for some questions just to check if we have any question or comments. Right. Right. So let's see if we have any comment. Right. I see Sibongile Jonas is quite interactive. Thank you so much for interacting with us. Challenges is that no matter how disciplined you are, handling all the distractions from a non-office environment can be tough for everyone. Of course, that's so true. You might find it harder to concentrate after lunch break, or you might struggle to get going in the morning. I mean, that's why we need to have those boosters. What is that one thing that gets you going? What is that one thing that helps you start the day? We can improve collaboration by creating a supportive work environment. That is so true. Thank you so much for joining our session and for interacting with us. Right, so now we're going to go to our last part of our session, which is while we're working from home, we need to manage and maintain our well being. I'm going to throw this question at you. Why is it important to manage your well being? Why is it important for us to manage our well being? Do let us know in the chat box. We would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for those that are engaging with us. Please do engage with us in the chat box. We would love to hear from you. Right, so it's important to manage our well-being because it impacts our overall health. If you are happier and fitter, then our well-being is good. We need to when we manage our well-being, it leads to greater productivity, where we are more motivated, we are more focused, we work better, and we are more quickly at completing tasks. And it also increases our resilience. We are able to overcome obstacles head on. We don't crumble when we face those hard challenges. So we are able to fight our setbacks and dust ourselves up and continue with life. It boosts our morale and level of happiness. The more we are engaged and supported and happy, the more that we have in on an overall working life. Here's another question for you. What can you do to manage your well-being? Do let us know in the chat box. What can you do to manage your well-being? And this is what we thought, right? One of the reasons that many managers don't approve remote working is the fear that employees will slack off right? Without someone overseeing them. But in fact, the opposite tends to be a reality where remote working can result in overworking. When your personal life and your work are both under the same roof, like we said earlier on, it's harder to switch off. So we need to make sure that we allow ourselves breaks throughout the day in order to clear our mind and come back with a more clear, focused mindset, right? We need to be clear with our team when you are leaving. For example, if you can make a quick announcement on Team or Skype that you're about to take a walk, so that people know that at that time you went out for a walk. You can also turn off your notifications on your phone um, in order to focus on your work, right? You need to also set appointments on your calendar so that you know that, okay, at this time I'm going to the calendar, not calendar, to gym. At this time I'm going to grocery shopping. At this time I'm going to take a walk around the block. This will help you in terms of avoiding overworking as well as taking regular breaks. And another important thing is we need to be able to manage the cultural shift from office based to remote working, right? We need to look beyond the barriers of power supply and internet access, right? Traditional companies will also have those established work and organizational culture to embrace remote working, right? So you will choose to trust the performance metrics that you've put in place. You will think of how you see work when you sit down and you work. You will look at the commitment of your employees, as well as you will look at being patient with your employees while they are working from home. So, how do we manage our overall well-being? We encourage exercise within our teams, right? Where we exercise regular in order to clear our mind, in order to have a mindset that is refreshed. We also encourage that we need to take mental health as serious as physical health, because that itself could have a huge impact in our productivity, right? We also need to have those regular performance check-ins, just to check in on your employees. How are they doing? Are they managing the work? Is it too much work? Is it less work? And we look into such. We also need to encourage our workers to separate work from life, private life. So we encourage that, excuse me, they need to have time where they can shut out, not shut out, but stop working. You know that you work from this time to this time, and then you stop, right? And also organize in-person social meetups, especially for those social extroverts employees. So it's always important or refreshing to meet up with your team and have some lunch while we either discuss work or just catch up um, from away from work. So I'm just gonna pause for a moment just to check if we have any questions. All right, I see we don't have any questions. Thank you so much for joining our sessions today and engaging with me. I've enjoyed the sessions so far. So what are the next steps from here, right? We would encourage you to go to the Grow with Google site, where you can find various short courses and training programs that can help you in terms of any remote working tips that you may want, or maybe setting up your workspace and so forth. So there's quite various courses that you could use in order to upskill yourself. So do check them out at Grow with Google site. And what is our next step from here, man? Like you said, go to Google, get that course that short course that you want. It's free, and just learn as much as you can. And also know that Google is offering a free bootcamp. All you have to do is you need to own a small business, and you want to scale up. So all you have to do is sign up at Google Hustle Academy at the link that you see on the screen. And this is an amazing boot camp. Trust me, it's a very informative. It's great. So do join us, and we are having one soon. So do sign up to join those boot camps. For our upcoming sessions, do follow us on social media for our digital tips and trips. And you can follow us on Google Digital Skills for Africa on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. On Twitter, we are Digital Skills AF. On Facebook, we are Digital Skills for Africa. On Instagram, we are Digital D Kills AF. And you can also follow us on social media. We are SchoolNet South Africa. If you want to hear more about the sessions that we are hosting, we are SchoolNet SA on Facebook, SchoolNet SA on Instagram, SchoolNet SA on Twitter, SchoolNet South Africa on LinkedIn. Do follow us to get more updates about our upcoming sessions. And thank you so much for joining our session today. Do let us know a feedback in the chat box or in the feedback link that is shared. And thank you so much for having me in your screens today. Have a great afternoon.